Good evening and welcome. Somehow the story isn't true anymore. We've had a story going on for a long time. Definitely the last 500 years. And certainly long before that. If you have watched my videos, you can always tell when I go into blame. Because I do think that all of this that's going on right now is rather recent history. And that recent history is what happened about 500 years ago, as well as what happened about 10 to 15, maybe 10 to 12,000 years ago. I'm not totally clear on that. At the time when we started to create agriculture and stop being hunter-gatherer type people. And the story that has been going on for a long time is definitely a story of separation, that you and I are different people. You know, we're here to make the most out of everything. And what I'm talking about is being talked about by a lot of other people. And part of the reason that I'm even talking about it is because other people are talking about this. What I really want to talk about, not so much what the story is, but that the story is breaking down. That's what is actually more valuable to me, is that the story is breaking down. And that actually is a good thing. I know that it doesn't feel like it at all, quite frankly. It doesn't feel like it. But it is a good thing. The reason that it is because the story only takes us so far. And there's too much collateral damage now to believe that the story holds up. Certainly, the biggest thing, certainly the biggest thing is COVID. That has been a wake-up call. But the only reason that it's a wake-up call is because it essentially affects everybody on the planet. And this is really different from the fact that, people are dying of very significant things all the time, more so in other areas, in other ways, than are dying from COVID. But COVID is something that we can all focus on. And the reason that we can actually all focus on this is because it has affected everybody. Now, the other diseases do too, but it's subtler. And I don't want to say that I'm dismissing the COVID thing. The COVID thing is kind of inevitable. It was bound to happen. I didn't know how or what was going to happen, but I knew something was off before COVID came around. A year ago at this time, I started driving again for one of the drive companies after taking several months off. The one thing that I noticed almost immediately, and this was October a year ago, pre-COVID, I noticed that there was something wrong. It was just an energy that I was picking up in people, in their rides. Just, and everybody was pleasant and lovely. I mean, people were not much different than they had been in prior times that I had driven. But there was something off. There was something energetically off. And I picked it up. But I don't think that I could have verbalized it. If you had asked me that a year ago, I'm not sure that I could have verbalized or forced that out of my observational self. So I drove through October, November, December, January, February, and part of March. And I kept feeling that all the time. And I only drive part-time, so it was, it wasn't, but there was something really, it's the word that came to, or the sentence that came to me about this after I stopped working and started to think about it all was, this is unsustainable. That was the thing that became very, very clear to me, is that whatever is going on here is unsustainable. This franticness that I am feeling from people is unsustainable. The human psyche and body cannot possibly cope with this. And I was correct. So something was going to happen. It happened to be COVID. It could have been a number of other things. But typically, going back to blame, the fact that we live in these types of societies today is the reason that we have pandemics. We've had them for a long time. In fact, I think one of the shocks to people's system is the fact that we haven't had a big one since 1918 to 1922. And because of that, I think people are a little surprised because they're not used to it. In the past, society was used to this. They were used to really kind of 20-year cycles of this. Now, who knows why this has happened right now? And I am not in any way, shape, or form, as I have talked about this many times, understand what's going on, nor do I know what the bigger picture is. I have opinions, but I don't know. What I do know is that our way of being is no longer working. That's the real key. And I also don't know the solution to that. And that's a good thing, because there's an old saying, I think it was Einstein who said this, I'm not sure, but somebody said, the mind that got, I'm paraphrasing, the mind that got me to where I am today, the mind that got you to where you are today, the mind that got society to the place it is today, is not the mind that's going to get us out of it. So the one thing that I do know, it has to become a very significant psychic shift. There's no question in my mind that that's what has to occur. Now, how that occurs, I have no idea. I can suspect it's probably going to be rather painful, but most psychic shifts are painful. I hate to tell the people that don't want to live in any pain. I'm really, really saddened and sorry that this is happening. It hurts my heart, and I think it hurts a lot of people's hearts. I don't think I'm alone in that. The life that I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and somewhat certainly into the 80s, that life doesn't exist anymore. And unless you were there, it would be kind of hard to try to describe it to you. But it definitely was different. I'm not necessarily saying it was better, because we have made so many strides in so many areas. However, we are faced with a big one. A big one that is going to test our mettle, but what's also going to be is that it has to be a psychic shift. And if you're curious about that kind of description, I suggest a little bit of Carl Jung, not a lot, because he's a lot. He's very intense, but he's very smart. And let's just acknowledge, first and foremost, that our current way of being is not working. It's just not. And then to be so open to the fact that we don't know what to do, that leads to actual solution. So I don't know what to do. I'm doing these videos, and a lot of times I talk about this stuff. I coach people, and I do other things. I'm doing what I think is the best for me at the moment. And maybe that's all we all have to do. Or not. I don't know. That's what I'm doing. And I do a lot of prayer. As I've talked about many times, I do a lot of prayer. Thank you so much for listening this evening. Merci beaucoup. Bonsoir.